Welcome back, dear listeners, to another powerful episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I'm your host, Avik, and today's episode takes us into one of the most important and I would say most human conversations that we can have: mental health. And, dear listeners, we are recording on the day which we celebrate as World Mental Health Day. Yeah. So, dear listeners, we often hear the stories of success, strength, and overcoming. But the path between breakdown and the breakthrough is not linear. It's very, I would say, deeply personal, raw, and often lifelong. So, my guest today, please welcome Leif Gregersen. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Avik.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, before we delve deep into the discussion, I'd love to introduce you with Leif. So, Leif has lived through that journey in full color. So at 18, he had what most people would consider a perfect life, like good grades, a promising future, and big dreams. But behind the surface, he was battling untreated bipolar disorder, which eventually led to the depression, psychosis, and a series of painful life events that would change everything, right? So today, 35 years later, he is a published author of 12 books, a mental health advocate, and a speaker of the Schizophrenia Society. So he uses his lived experiences to educate, inspire, and create understanding around the mental illness. And his message is very simple: recovery is possible, and helping others is part of healing itself and yourself. So, why to wait, dear listeners? Leif, welcome to the show, and it's really an honor to have you here.
It's great to be here, Avik.
Amazing. So, Leif, like as I was mentioning about your story, which begins with what looked like a promising teenage life, but yet underneath, you were facing the battle that few could see, right? So, if you can take us back to that moment in your life when everything started to unravel, when you realized that something deeper was happening beyond what you could control.
Well, actually, things have been coming on for quite a while. Yeah, I guess there was sort of a point when I was in elementary school, probably around grade 4, where
Uh-huh.
you would see pictures of me over the time, and happy kid, having fun, taking care of himself, and then all of a sudden there was this picture, uh, the school photo, of I had messy hair, I had bags under my eyes, I had sort of hollow cheeks, and that was when I started experiencing depression. And depression is common. Uh, they call it a prodromal phase. It's sort of you sometimes
Oh,
have an illness before schizophrenia, and it started with me with depression, later developed into bipolar disorder, which used to be known as manic depression. I was first hospitalized at 14, but only for 2 weeks, and it wasn't a mandatory thing. It was
okay.
sort of voluntary. I didn't take the advice I was given. I didn't see a psychiatrist on a regular basis. Um, I went back to school, and I basically just decided that I didn't like being in a hospital, and so I sort of curbed some of my more impulsive behaviors, things like at the time I was a cadet in the Air Cadets in St. Albert, where I grew up,
Right.
and I had thrown myself into being, the perfect soldier and all that stuff, and I would wear army uniforms and stuff. But after I was released from the hospital, I stopped wearing the army uniforms. I tried to get away from all that. Um, High school was really difficult because I was battling the mental illness, and at the time as well, kind of an addiction. It wasn't a daily habit, but I had
Yeah.
a tendency to binge drink, and I sort of remember how in school, when I would drink, I'd be able to sort of get out of my depression, but unfortunately, it would kind of put me into a manic state, and I drove a lot of friends away from me doing that. I made a lot of friends, but I drove a lot of people away, because, I would sort of just get drinking and just treat people horribly and do horrible things, and, yeah.
Mm,
But one thing I wanted to mention when I was 18, um, a lot of people really thought I had it all together, and one of the things I have such a vivid memory of is my car. I had a car. It was
okay.
1978 Ford Mustang Cobra, and it was a really nice vehicle. And
Yeah.
but I can recall driving it, and I could feel that it was an enjoyable car to drive and everything. And it was powerful and it had really great handling. Um, but it didn't give me any personal satisfaction. And that's something I always like to say is that you're not going to get any personal satisfaction out of any physical thing. You have to feed your soul. You have to feed your spirit. And mine simply was being blocked off by this
Mm,
mental illness, my spirit.
exactly. I mean, that's such a powerful reminder that what we see on the surface rarely tells the full story. So, like so many young people today are silently battling with the same invisible storms, I would say. But your honesty helps break the silence. So, thank you so much for sharing that. And also, yeah, please, you're saying something. Yeah.
Oh, well, it just one of the things I do quite often is I work for the Schizophrenia Society of Alberta, and they send us to a lot of high school classes. And we'll go there and we'll give a presentation about the facts of mental health, and then we'll tell our own story. And by telling our own story, we want to educate people and make them understand better what
Mm,
that 1% who has schizophrenia, that 2% who has bipolar disorder. Uh, I think it's another 1% would have severe depression, unipolar. Um, so we try to educate these everyone as much as we can. But it's unfortunate because it's not part of the regular curriculum. It's something we have to go in and add to the curriculum on behalf of the teacher. And there's just not enough people to go around. I mean, I think with the Schizophrenia Society branch of Edmonton, our
yeah.
Edmonton branch where I work, we only have about 6 people who do the presentations,
Hmm.
and there's only so many that can be done.
Amazing. So the you have said that something that really stayed with me, which is helping others, is a medicine that helps me stay sane. Right. So if you can walk us through about that, how service, like giving back through your writing, speaking, and advocacy became the part of your mental health journey. So what do you say?
Yeah, well, on the most basic level, if I'm going to a school and I'm speaking to these young people and describing to them that they have to be, if they have problems or whatever, they have to be honest with themselves and honest
Mm,
with someone who can help them. When I'm telling them these things, on the most basic level, it just keeps me reminded that I need to take my medication every day. I need
yeah.
to see my doctor every few weeks. I need to get my injection of antipsychotic medication. And, and then there's, things that are just basic to most people's lives that are really necessary for me, like regular sleep, regular meals, regular exercise. Um,
Yeah.
and, uh, and I think one of the most important things about getting those things is that, you need companionship with people who are also suffering from what you are, so that there's a certain level of understanding, and so there's also a way to build relationships and friendships and everything uh, based on your mutual illnesses and things like that.
Mm, true. So here, like, do you find that when you help others, it it reinforces your own stability and also the sense of meaning?
It does. It definitely does. I just when I'm trying to look for ways to reach other people, reach them deep down, and help them to understand that we need to show compassion for people with mental illnesses, and we need to have more treatment and understanding. I'm so reminded of it even just walking out my door. Um, you see people sleeping on the streets and things like that, or
Mm.
using drugs, and I really think a lot of these people who are on the streets and in this terrible position, I think a lot of these people are living with mental illnesses as well. And those are the ones that it's so hard to reach because they may be caught up in addiction, and but I still feel that I need to do something for these people. If they ask me for something, I want to give it to them, whether it be a couple of bucks or you know, 1 year, not 1 year, but most years when it gets cold around this time of year, um, I'll go to the dollar store and everything's not everything, but most products are a dollar, and I'll buy things like soap and hats and gloves and I'll donate them either to, say, a drop-in center where people go who are homeless, or even sometimes I'll just walk down the street and give them to people that seem to need it.
So definitely, I mean, it's such a beautiful path because it's a truth that sometimes purpose becomes the best prescription, and it's definitely the reminder that the healing is not selfish, it's cyclical. When you lift others, you lift yourself. Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly. So breaking the stigma, right? So you work closely with the organizations like the schizophrenia society, and also speak publicly about the mental health, and something that still carries the stigma in many parts of the world, right? What do you wish like people understand better about the mental illness, especially the conditions like bipolar disorder and schizophrenia spectrum disorders?
Yeah, well, I just feel, it needs to be talked about more. It needs to be brought out into the open. And these are things that happen on the one-to-one level, be they with a family member or a friend or something like that.
Yeah.
I had a coworker, she retired, a few years back.
Okay.
She worked with me at the Schizophrenia Society, and she would often say that,
Yeah.
not too long ago in the '60s and such, people, did not talk about cancer. They would not bring the subject up. It was dark, it was death, it was all these horrible things. But she said, though, people did eventually start talking about cancer, and
Mm.
all of a sudden, more people were getting early detection, more people were surviving, more funds were raised for research, for treatment, for all these things. And, schizophrenia and bipolar and psychosis, they're all still in the dark. People don't talk about them. There's been numerous times, part of my
Yeah.
efforts are to, write articles for, different magazines and things like that, and, I was approved to write an article for a magazine for a club I belong to, and, when I said the part about having, a mental illness in my diagnosis, the editor actually took the effort to contact me and
Yeah.
say, "Are you really sure you wanna say this?" Absolutely, and, unfortunately, sometimes it costs me, future, jobs with a magazine, um, but, if that's I don't mind sacrificing the payment for one article, I don't mind sacrificing a little bit of embarrassment or stigma.
Amazing. So, like, do you think that, I mean, from your perspective, I would love to ask about your advice, right? Like, would you give to the families? What would you give to the families or maybe the friends who are trying to support someone they love who's struggling?
Well, I think generally the first thing that really needs to be done is you need to connect with others who are, going through the similar things you are. Now I do work for the Schizophrenia Society, but I also volunteer, for a foundation called Cures. It's based in Ohio in the United States, and they serve people with schizophrenia and their families. And the woman who runs it is amazing. Her name is Bethany Iser, and the foundation is sort of her creation. One of the things they do is Bethany keeps a list of people who are caregivers who have experience taking care of a loved one with a mental illness. And if somebody comes along and she sees they have a need for
Mm,
for somebody to mentor them, somebody to teach them how to be a better caregiver, she connects the two. And there's many other things, including support groups and things like that.
yeah.
Well, I think the most important thing a person should really start to do is get connected, be it the National Alliance of Mental Illness in the
Mm.
States or the Schizophrenia Society in Canada, or whatever. Just be able to have a learning ground, a sharing ground, all that sort of thing.
I mean, that's such an important perspective. I think compassion starts with the education, and the stories like yours create that bridge between fear and understanding. So, definitely. And so, for anyone who is listening right now who's in that dark place, what would you say to them? Hold on.
Um, I would say hold on. I always used to see this poster in school. My teacher put up, when you get to the end of your rope, make a knot and hold on.
Yeah.
Um, I was in a very, well, it's hard to describe. I was in a very dark place. I was being treated for my mental illness, but the medication I was getting left me non-functional and very restless. But still, I pushed through it. And what I did was I had a book of short stories. I normally read a lot. Like I'll read a book a week or maybe two books a week.
Mm,
But at the time, I was unable to read a normal sized book. But I took a book of short stories and I'd look for one of the shortest ones, and I'd push myself to read it and go beyond my limits, the limits that were caused by the medication, and just sort of push myself forward. I'd read the story, pace around. When I got tired, I'd sit down and I'd read another story. Um, but no matter how deep a hole you are in, you can
mm,
still climb out. And you may have to just climb out a little bit at a time, and or just do what you can, but just never give up, and never give up trying to go somewhere with who you are.
exactly.
Now Bethany, who runs the Cures Foundation, she had a doctor who took over for another doctor. She was being treated for her schizophrenia, but she wasn't really functioning. She wasn't going to school. She wasn't working. She'd be sitting at home, gaining weight, things like that. And she got a new doctor, and the doctor said, that is not recovery. That
Mm,
is not overcoming schizophrenia. And she was encouraged to eventually return to school. She ended up finishing her degree, I believe, in molecular biology. And then with the help of her doctor, she started this amazing foundation that has helped so many people. And it's just a good example of not giving up and accomplishing great things by just doing a little bit at a time, and just keep moving forward.
that's incredibly touching, Leif. I mean, I think what makes your story so powerful is that it's not just about surviving the mental illness, but it's all about learning to live fully despite it. So, thank you so much for sharing your heart, your story, and your hard won wisdom. I mean, you have reminded us that healing is not about erasing the past, but it's all about rewriting our relationship with it. And that even after the darkest night, the dawn still can still be beautiful. So, everyone who is listening, if you or someone you love is struggling with the depression, anxiety, or the mental health challenge, please reach out for the support. Help is out there, and recovery is definitely possible. And you can connect with Leaf and explore his books, blog, and talks through the links in our show notes. And Leaf, like if someone wants to connect with you, what will be the great medium to connect?
Um, well, if someone if someone wanted to connect with my work, I've been putting a lot of effort lately into my Substack page. Substack is a platform for people who are bloggers and podcasters. Once a week, I do an audio podcast. At least twice a week, I write text posts, blog entries, and you go to Substack.com, and then you can do a search on Leif Substack, Leif Substack, and that'll take you to where you can just hit a button and subscribe to my page. Um, it's always appreciated if someone gets a paid membership, but the fact is, there's no difference on my blog between a paid membership and a free membership. It's just that if you pay, you support me, you help me. Um, hopefully I can get to give out resources like this amazing podcast that you have running, Avik. And yeah, so that's probably the best way. And then people can also reach me by email. Probably the easiest way to get to me is my email is Viking, Viking, all lowercase, and then the numbers 308 2000 at yahoo.com. And I keep that email open. It's not really my business email, but anybody who wants to reach me can get me there. I check it every day.
Mm,
So Viking 308 2000 at yahoo.com.
amazing. So, dear listeners, I'll put all the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And with this hope, until next time, this is your host, Avik, and this is Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. Until next time, be kind to your mind, care for your heart, and remember that healing doesn't make you perfect, but it makes you whole. So, thank you so much.